Can everybody hear me? Yes. No hollering and screaming. For everybody that don't know who I am, and there's a few that don't, I'm Alvin Martin. I grew up here. And my wife's Barbara, where'd she go? There she's right back there. And everybody knows her father. And Herschel has been in this county forever. We know a lot of several people that's in here. But I was asked to come here, or I asked to come here.
That's good. We're glad.
I think. Alex told me what was going on here, and he said, "Would you?" I said, "Yes, I would." And I just hope to just help somebody along the line. And what I want to tell you, what's coming up now is absolutely 100% true. It's not stretched. And it's so bad, this is how bad it is. My medical records up at Erlanger, I left them open. And people didn't really believe what was going on. And I left them all. I said, you can go check it. You can look at me anytime you want to if you don't believe all this stuff happened. You know that Erlanger blocked that stuff? And I can't even get into my own. I don't think so, unless Barbara figured out a way to put another password in there. But anyway, back in 2018, I'm going to have to make her move up here so she can nod to me. 2018, it was a Saturday morning, and this started out like all other Saturday mornings do. We gather up the trash, throw it in the back of the truck, go there and get Herschel and Lucille's trash every Saturday morning, every Saturday morning. Take it to the dump, come back home, and then me and Barbara kind of part ways. She does this and I do that. This day, though, she wanted to stop there and got Lucille's trash, and she wanted Barbara to come back and clean up something for her. And so I went on to the dump, picked her up, and brought her back home. She got in her car and went back down there. Helped him down there. And after a little while, she come home after a little while and said that she thought Herschel had a UTI. Now, what I'm going to tell you is the first miracle of this story. And I think it is anyway. So she comes back home, and tells me what she's going to do. She's going to clean up a little bit, and then she's going to take her daddy to Calhoun down to her doctor. And I said, no. I said, just take him up here to Chatsworth. And then if he can have a UTI test up here. And if he's got one, if he wants to, you can still take him down there, but he ain't right here close to home. And she said, okay. That's the first miracle. She agreed with me on something about her daddy. Because when it come to Herschel, when Herschel was sick, what she said was, that was it. There wasn't anything else. And so, and actually, you'll find out here in just a few minutes why that was the first one. But anyway, it was a pretty warm day for a November day. It's pretty hot. And I was out there cutting trees. We'd cut clean it off a half acre, and I was out there cleaning it up. And working on the little side shed I had over here. And went on through the day. And on up in the evening, I don't know what time it was exactly, 4:30 or so. Thought I'd go in the house and get me about something to eat, something to drink. And went in the house, and the first thing I did was call the house, call Barbara, and see how Herschel was and all this other stuff. And so called her, she said, everything's fine, they're fixing so they to get to the paperwork, or they're going to release him and everybody's going to go home. I thought, okay, that's good. And had that cell phone in my hand, I threw it down in the chair. Turned around, started walking into the kitchen, and there was a pain right here. And believe it or not, the doctors argued with me for 3 weeks about this. I could feel it spewing in my shoulder. and I could hear it, but I could feel it. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of pain involved in this. And I got a kind of a strange sense of humor. I don't know if anybody else talks to themselves or not. But I said, what in the flip is this? You know, that was just another thing. What in the flip is this one? So anyhow, about 5 seconds after that, I was down on my knees then because anybody know what a dissected aorta is? Okay, it's one of the worst things in the world. It actually is. And so anyway, I was kind of, this guy explained it one time. When I finally got out of the hospital, I had a long time to figure out all this stuff, got on the internet and done all this reading and everything. What the flip was this? This guy explained it he said there's a devil sitting on his chest with a fork, ripping his heart out. Yeah. And he had it about right. I mean, it hurt. I mean, actually, you ever had your skin to tear? I mean, tear? That's what it feels like on the inside. Because that's what it's doing. It's tearing that, spreading that aorta out, going up there. And your heart's still beating, your blood's still going, but it's going to the wrong place. All right. So anyway, okay, here I was, and I know this wasn't no heart attack, because if you watch your TV commercials, heart attack don't hurt that much. No. But anyway, I didn't know what it was, but I knowed it was something completely out of the ordinary. I didn't know. And so, according to everything that you do, you're having a heart attack, what's the first thing you do? Take an aspirin, or 2, or 3, or whatever. So I took, 4, 5, 6, and I went in my mouth and chewed it up. I didn't swallow it. I let it dissolve in my mouth and everything, and it goes to your blood quicker that way than still swallowing, you know. So, okay, that didn't do anything. But anyway, I went to the telephone, and I was standing there. This is a good lesson for everybody in here. If you're ever on the phone with 911 and they ask you, what are you doing right now? Never tell them that you're standing up talking to them on the phone. It don't matter if you're the toughest man in the world, because that's what I was doing. I was standing there, dying, didn't know it, talking to them on the phone. And they said, you're not laying, you're not. I said, no, I'm just standing here talking to you. And you know, it was Caleb, when I called my son after that time Caleb got there, Caleb had to call him again because they never showed up. They didn't think there was anything wrong with me. I was still standing talking to him on the phone. So, okay. Now, anyway, so I called Caleb. He lived right above us up there. And just in case it was something pretty bad. And I could get up a minute, but when that started tearing, it was about all anybody could stand. I mean, it was, and I've had a few pains in my lifetime. And that was top of the list. He was right on top of the list for the most worst pains I ever had. But anyway, my son come down there, and his wife was with him. You know how women are, mothers are. She goes, gets 5 more aspirin. So here, take these. I said, I don't need no more. She said, take them anyway. Okay, and I found out later the worst possible thing I could have done was take aspirin when that thing was tearing my insides out, because it didn't slow it down a bit. It sped up everything, which in the long run, it's a little bit better because it did speed everything up. So, make a long story short here, Caleb called the ambulance, 911 again, finally got him there, come in there and checked me, and I had blood pressure, my heart was beating, I was breathing, ain't nothing wrong with me. All right? And so they're trying to figure out what to do, because Everything showed good. There wasn't nothing wrong with me. I was laying in the recliner, and I'd get up and do something, and they'd tell me to sit back down and all this stuff. They didn't have a clue. They went out and they called back to the hospital trying to figure out what to do. And all this time they were just sitting there. Nobody's doing anything. And so here I am, and it's been 30, 45 minutes. Most time, 30, 45 minutes, the person's already dead. You done gone. And so they had a doctor up at the hospital on the weekends. His name was Dr. Cruz. Does anybody remember him from up here? His last name was Cruz. Real good guy. And they told him, go ahead, load me up and take me. Anyway, take him up here. And he had seen a dissection before somewhere in his lifetime. Nobody else knew what was wrong with me. So I get up to the hospital, and I got to start right. Go back to the first miracle I was talking about. Who was standing in the emergency room, boy? The first face I seen when I went in was her. That's number one. Anyway, yeah, that bothers me every time I tell that part. It does. But they laying there. Oh, well, I got to tell you one more thing before they do. Since the EMTs didn't know what was wrong with me, they said, "You mind walking out here to the ambulance and getting on the stretcher?" Because I said, "Sure will." Serious as heart attack now. I ain't had a heart attack, so but anyway, really, they did, and I said, "Okay." Got up and walked down the stairs, put myself on the whatever you call that thing with you. They shoved me in the ambulance, and then we took off. And get back, put me in that emergency room door, and seen Barbara sitting there. Put me in there, and you could look at the back side of it, and Herschel and Lucille was sitting on the back wall, and everybody was there. And if I'd died right then, that would have been, I don't know if it'd been too nice or not, but everybody was there. And so, anyway, Dr. Cruz needed a CT scan before he could make a proper analysis of what was wrong. So, got on the bed and pulled me in for the CT scan room in the room there. That little nurse asked me, says, "Can you get on the bed by yourself?" I said, "Sure. I've done everything else. I'll do that too, And so I, get off the bed, get up on where the scanner is, put myself in there, and then when she gets through, I get back off and get back on the bed. And I'm done wore out. Not really, but I thought, this is the strangest thing I've ever seen. What do they pay these people for? And so anyway, and I had a pain or two while I was in the hospital, but most of it already stopped. It was already over, basically, except for one. I had one bad episode when I was there, and Barbara seen it, and she could tell, I think, how bad it actually did hurt. But anyway, it went on a few minutes, went on a few minutes, and give me something for pain to get me to relax, and I was relaxing a little bit. And then I didn't have no more pains out of that, so I was feeling pretty good, not too bad hurting or anything. And Dr. Cruz came up to Barbara and said, he's having a aortic dissection. Because he had seen one before, he knew what it was. And there ain't a thing in the world we can do about it here. Nothing. And I ain't even going to attempt to do anything because I can't do nothing for him. So, anyway, I don't know how much time went by. Barbara, I guess, kept up with it all the time. And sometime in the future, I don't know how long it was because I was pretty well relaxed there at that time, they got a Life Force helicopter down here and flew me to Chattanooga. And like I said, Barbara was the first person I seen went in the emergency room. She was the last person I seen before I left. And all I remember we getting on the hospital was, the helicopter was the blade speeding up. And that's the last thing I remember. And I didn't see her again for 19 days. Now, in bits and pieces, now I did see her, but not while I was fully awake until 19 days later. And when I had died in the hospital in the helicopter going up there, he got me revived, got me in the emergency room. Barbara got up there at 10 o'clock. Now I had this dissection at 5:30, and Barbara got to the emergency room in Erlanger at 10 because they had to get everything together and then drive. When I got there, I was laid on the thing in the emergency room, had my head on the pillow, and they'd already forgot about me, pretty much. And just a minute, I need to go back 1 year here in a few minutes. Skipped a part, but anyway, she went in there, and this is what she told me. I don't know. I wasn't in that part of the world at that time. I was somewhere else. Don't know where. And she come in my head, fell off the pillow, and she put my head back up on the pillow. And then the alarms went off. I died again. Well, Barbara was holding me. And anyway, there's a guy in there called, his name was Jason Kennedy. He's from Alabama. He was the head anesthesiologist up there. And one thing you can't do, if you're planning on doing something bad, don't never do it in the big city on a Saturday night, because you ain't going to get no help. It's first come, first served on a weekend night in the emergency room in the airport. You may lay there for 3 or 4 hours with bullet holes, and it ain't going to do you no good. Anyway, when the alarms went off, he come in there and got Barbara and everybody, took them to the waiting room. And him and he'd already knew what happened. It must have already happened one time before. And he told me this later. And this, I don't know how y'all take this, but how they done that, I ain't got no idea. They took a tube, cut a hole in my chest. What happened, my aorta ruptured on the backside. It was pumping blood straight into my heart sac. And it put so much in there, it locked my heart down. It couldn't move. There's too much pressure on it. And he took a tube somehow or another, stuck it between my ribs up here, and run it down in there and let the pressure off of that. Now, how he found that first time, I can't imagine that. And Dr. Pointer, he was the guy that done most of the surgery. Went into the waiting room where they was at, and told Barbara and them if I lived long enough to get to the OR, he thought he could help me with something. If I lived that long, and I'd already died twice. But I guess he'd seen a lot of that similar stuff, similar to that. And so and he was not. I need to back up, clarify something. The year before this happened, everybody in here like hospitals? No. Okay. I do up to a point. I mean, they're necessary. I fully believe that. But a year before this happened, and most of y'all work in carpet mills or something, I'm assuming. You've got to fill out the insurance thing for the next year, every year in the fall. And so, me and Barbara's never been sick. Never get sick. So we always found the cheapest one that there was, and that's the one we took, because all I'd ever had is a kidney stone, once every 5 years, and that ain't nothing. And so, you'll think, well, this is just a good guess. No, it wasn't no good guess. We were sitting there that night. She was on the couch, and I was in the recliner, and I was filling out the papers. And all I liked was just checking that last box and then turn that thing in. I stopped her and I said, you know, we don't never get sick. I said, one of these days it is, and it's going to be something bad. I said, why don't we take this catastrophic policy out? You think it was a good guess? You think it was something else? That wasn't no guess. And I'll tell you why there wasn't no guess. The first thing they asked Barbara when she got up to the emergency room was what kind of insurance I had. That was the first question. And if they checked on what she had, they said she had a catastrophic policy. It was $1 million cap. Yeah, we're going to operate on him. Sure they are. But they had no doubt, they had no idea in the world I was going to live through that. That wasn't the plan. They wanted the money. Now, I fully agree. I ain't going to sit here and say that I love hospitals, because I know Barbara don't. Because Barbara's brother was up there, you know, Glenn, when he had that motorcycle. And she don't like them. And they're good places in a way and bad places in a way. But anyway, back to the other story. But that was the reason for the other miracle I forgot to give you a while ago was getting that catastrophic surgery, because the hospital wanted the money, and now they was going to fix me. They thought they was going to fix me, but they had no idea what time of day that dissection happened. Nobody knew but Barbara and me. And see, when she got there, I'd already had that thing 5 hours. And there's no way in the world anybody's had one of them that's going to be alive 5 hours later. Nobody. And so anyway, I done this and got my heart beating back again. And Jason Kennedy, by the way, he was a good Christian man. Didn't know that till later. But I'll tell you why here in a little bit. Him and 2 nurses, female nurses now, you know, not the male nurses. I ain't got nothing against the female or male nurses, but they're smaller and they're not as strong as the males. That's the reason I'm saying that. You know how much a hospital bed weighs? With all the everything else hooked to it, and you're doing all this, you know. And then you got 170 pounds of dead weight on it besides that. What does it weigh? 500 pounds. It was taking me from emergency room up to the operating room. And it's on the 4th floor. The emergency room is on the 1st floor. So you get up to the 3rd floor and the elevator stops. All right. You got Dr. Kennedy and 2 girls. And it stopped about 3 feet from the door. The door opened and the thing would not move. And them 3 people picked that bed up and set that thing up there in the hall and got me on into the operating room. Now, when the devil's trying to kill you, he'll do about anything in the world. Even a simple thing like that. But that's part of this whole story. Now, it gets better, believe it or not, all of this. Anyway, they get into the operating room. The heart stops again. They finally get me on the heart-lung machine. And they figure out what it is that's really wrong with me. They find out that I have a dissection. I have a ruptured aorta in the back, where the arch comes off the heart and goes down. It had blowed out on the backside. And that's automatic death sentence, always. 100% dissection, all the way down to the end where it's separated, go from one leg to the other. That's automatic death sentence. That's 2 things. And my lung quit. Everything on my left side was because the dissection was on the left side of the aorta. Everything on this side was getting no blood. My back, my legs, my arm, my lungs, and everything on that side, everything was dead, basically dead. So, and it wasn't basically dead, but the aorta is the only organ in the body, I found this out later, that will not heal itself. Like a blood vein, you can stick a needle in it, pull it back out, and it'll heal up, it'll seal up. Aorta won't do that. If you tear it and put a stitch in and put it back together, that stitch got to be on there forever, because it won't heal itself back up, just the stitch. Okay? And so they had to open that thing up all the way down, and every time that the tire passed a artery or anything like that, it would close it off. Close it off, close it off. So out here it was, when they started operating on me, I'd been 6 hours with no blood going to anything. All of it stopped. Now, there was somebody that had come in the waiting room. Barbara probably, I don't know, Barbara, I was told this later. Somebody stuck their head in the waiting room with all the Barbara and all of them there. And what they said was, I say you're a great bunch of people. They said, you pray for this, go and pray hard. And nobody remembers who the guy was. And but this is where you got to look at hospitals. I know most of y'all been to a lot of hospitals in your life. I know Vince has and Sheila has, whatever. But you know, there's a few angels there. There's a few demons there too. You know, and where else would they be really? Because life and death happens there every day. Every day. And if you get your mind right, sometimes you can pass one and you know it. But sometimes when you're a little bit out of the normal, you can see them and you can see them and you can look at them. And that the surgery took it started at 12:04 and they finished it at 4 a.m. It just so happened, one thing about having scheduling good, all the top people in their field was on call that night. You know, all the top people, all the head people in the whole hospital was on call that night. And so all of them was in there working on me. And so you had the head anesthesiologist, had the head robotic surgeon, the head thoracic surgeon, the guy that takes care of all your circulation and everything. That top guy was there too. And all they done, I found this out later, was tear out everything they could and sew it back together. And that was all they could do, really. They couldn't fix that. You can't fix that. But got to hang on to the rest of that story too. But so I finally, they got me stable somehow, and it wouldn't. I'll tell you how in a minute, but because it was grace of God that done that, and everybody in there knew that. Actually, Jason Kennedy told his nurse after this was over, he said, now he's going to be back up here for something. I want you to watch that chart every day. And if you see that name, you let me know. We're going to schedule us to go back and do that again. Because the second time, they wanted some the first time again. He told me himself, he said, everything we done was perfect. Every move, every decision, every stitch we put in was absolutely perfect. Because God was in there with them. They did no mistakes. Everything he said himself. He said everything we did was perfect, absolutely perfect. And I found this out later too, on a regular surgery for any kind of a aortic tear takes 8 hours. And They took me apart and put me back together in 4. Now, they didn't have no idea that I was going to live because you have, and he told me later, Dr. Pointer told me later, said there's 3 things that we don't do. He told me, he says, just to be honest about it, we don't operate on people like you. You just come right out and say it. Because it'd be so, your body is already so dead because no oxygen or anything, no blood or anything. You're not going to live more than 3 days. You're going to be brain dead if you do. We don't operate on. We park you off the side somewhere and let you die. I mean, that's what he told me. That's what they did. And Barbara asked him later, well, what made you operate on me if you knew all this? And he told Barbara, he said, I couldn't stand to see your face. But he was seeing something else in her face. Because, I mean, think about this a minute. You know, it's a, Herman Davis here the other day. You know, he had a stroke. And kind of scared him a little bit, you know. Because your first stroke you ever have, he's going to get your attention. I said, what do you think about that, pal? And he said, that makes you think about stuff, don't it? Puts everything in perspective. I learned, I was asked one time, what do I learn from being up there? I said, you probably don't want to know what I learned. I said, there ain't nothing in this world worth nothing. I mean, nothing. It ain't worth nothing. I mean, it don't matter how much money you make. I mean, everybody needs money. I understand that. Everybody needs a house. I understand that too. But it don't mean nothing. I mean, not a thing. That's right. It's kind of hard to explain all this stuff. And I've been asked all kinds of questions about that. I had a woman ask me one time, well, what did you do to deserve that? Well, nothing that I know of. And then there's another person says, what did you do to get out of it? And I said, I didn't do anything. I said, somebody else had control of that. I didn't do nothing. I will tell you one thing now. Through this whole thing, from beginning to end, and mind you now, there's a whole lot of that, I was somewhere else. I never was afraid. I never thought I was going to die. Never did. I mean, the first of it, I didn't care what it was. I never thought nothing about it. It didn't cross my mind at all. And it was later, it was, I don't know if you'd ever call it exciting. I mean, it was different. Because you looked at everything differently. And getting back to some of the stuff I seen when I was somewhere else. I don't know where I was. I don't know where I was. But I seen people I hadn't seen in a long time. Seen some people I didn't know who they was even. Now, I don't know if it was dreams or visions or what. I don't know what it was. But, I mean, it didn't do anything that bothered me at all. It was just like a dream, kind of. But and when Alex first asked me about coming and doing this, you know, he's told me what y'all been doing. And I thought, well, there ain't really nothing I can say that would go along with what y'all was doing, actually. But I did see the big spiders outside your window, just crawling around all over the building looking for somebody. I did see them. And I got talked about pretty bad about that. I even got my grandkids up to the windows when I said, can you not see that? And he'd roll his eyes at me, you know, look back at Barbara. He's just crazy, and he. But it was let me see which thing I forgot, because I know I did something. That went through too quick. I didn't think it was going to be that. That soon don't hold this against me. There's a whole lot of stuff that but I was gonna get back to Barbara, what Barbara done. But I have to go back to what I was told when I was a kid. You know, we're told all kinds of things when we're kids, you know, by adults. And some of them we think something of, and some of them we don't. And I come from a family that mom and dad's divorced twice to each other. And I reckon they finally figured out they need to go somewhere else and get them one. They've done that too. And so, and my daddy had a few brothers that was not too savory, and they liked a lot of alcohol and this and that and everything. But anyhow, I was told back then, I guess it's just to justify what they'd been doing. Kind of, I always thought that. They always told me, says, "Don't worry about this. That's what mamas and wives do. They leave when they get tired of you. They leave." And I've been told that for years, and I didn't really believe it or didn't disbelieve it. But I can stand here and I can tell you this right now. Every time I open my eyes, she was there. And I guess, I don't mean to talk bad about nobody that's went through anything like that. But she was the last face I seen when I went and had another procedure. And the first one I seen when I come back. Every time I come back, she was standing at the door asking me if I need something. And there's one time in particular, I told her, I said, I don't know how she heard me because I had 10,000 tubes in me and everything like that. But my mouth was so dry, it hurt. And she stood there with a sponge and a bottle of water and wet my mouth for an hour, a straight hour, till I went back to sleep. Now, mamas do leave. Wives do leave, but good ones don't. I had to give her that. We got Barbara's cousin is you know Keith Elrod? Yes. You know, he's an EMT. He's a chief over his own thing now, whatever it is you do. And he went up there, he come up there when I was up there, and he said he'd never seen anybody with so many tubes in them that I had. I had drain tubes. I had just putting stuff in one end and was draining out the other. You know, because they had to get all the leaks stopped and everything else, and they finally got that under control. I reckon Dr. Pointer told me he was trying to make fun of me one time. He said he had spent $50,000 on something that I spent $1.50 on. Because I'd eat so many aspirin, he spent $50,000 worth of coagulant pumping it through me, trying to get something to stop bleeding, you know, because I was bleeding to. And I guess that was true because I ended up taking about 10. And got on through all that and got to rehab. Yeah, I about forgot. See, I was supposed to be dead, ain't I? I skipped a pretty good piece of this. There was people up there that they would come by my room and just stand in the door. Because after the kind of word got spread around, I was the most famous person in that hospital. I mean, everybody wanted to come by my door. You know, not to see me, they wanted to see the name on that, you know, because they knew where that name is. And Dr. Warner, no, it was Dr. Shears the one told me this. He said, when I finally did wake up, you know, he asked me all the silly questions, and I answered them with silly questions. What can I do for you? I said, I want to go home. Of course, that's what you're going to say. And he laughed a little bit, and he said, I don't think you understand. No, I don't understand. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I just knew I was in a hospital. That's all I knew. He said, when you come here, you was a bag of dirt. Now, dirt's what you go to Lowe's to buy a bunch of flowers in. There ain't nothing living in that bag. According to him, I was worse than dead. I was nothing. I was a bag of dirt. And he said, you know what that means, don't you? I said, well, I guess. He said, you was a bag of dirt. And how I got to that point, well, the grace of God all the way through, and Dr. Kennedy, well, all of them knew something had happened. Dr. Kennedy's the only one that admitted to it. And because later, see, to start with, they was going to make commercials. They asked me when I come back up there for exam, you want to make commercials and put it on TV about all this stuff, because there is on commercials on TV about hospitals and everything. I guess I don't care. And then Barbara kind of busted her bubble. Can't beat an honest woman, I guess. Anyway, there's a bunch of them talking about this and how good a job they done and all this other stuff. Barbara said, hang on just a minute. He said, what time did y'all operate on him? They said, 12 o'clock. And he said, what time do you have his dissection? And none of the doctors knew. And she said, who kept him alive from 5 o'clock till 12? You ever seen somebody take all the air out of the room? I mean, there was no answer. And about the next trip up there, they dropped that idea about the commercials because they couldn't take credit for none of that. There was nothing they could do to take credit for. All they done was sewed me back up. But they didn't keep me alive. They didn't keep me alive here. They didn't keep me alive there. And they're not keeping me alive now. And that's just the way that, this story went. It went from beginning to end. It was all the way through. Now, I ain't nowhere near the end. How much time we've been through? You got to hear this last part, and then we'll. So anyway, go to rehab. Got to tell you a funny part of rehab, though. I've been walking up and down the hall doing pretty good. This nurse gets in there in my room before to take me to rehab. Said she's going to take them drain tubes out of me. So I said, sure, I guess. And there was 3 right here. And they already took everything else. They took him 3 out. Everything in my inside is dumped out on the floor. My blood pressure went down to about 0. And I was back in the bed again. We had to start this whole process right back over. And so they got me in rehab. Barbara was having to feed me. I couldn't even feed myself. And she'd give me and it was funny because the next day or so, she was making fun about her having to feed me mashed potatoes and gravy. That's the only thing in the hospital I wanted. Even after I'd been sick all that time, I didn't want nothing else. And so that same day, we go back into the rehab part, and this little girl, nurse, she comes up to me and hands me 2 half-pound dumbbells. And I just dropped them down on my knees, I said, she said, just watch what they're doing. Now, I can make fun of old people now. There's a whole big circle of old people in there, and they're doing these things. And I didn't think it, I thought it was just strange, because I still wasn't normal yet. Anyway, had them 2 things laying on my knees. And I asked Barbara, I said, is that little girl still here? She said, yeah. I said, bring her over a minute. She said, what's? I said, I can't pick it up. They weighed a half-pound apiece. All right. So she goes get me 2 pink ones with a 1/4 pound on the ends. Now, a quarter of 16 ounces is what? 4. You know how much a spoonful of mashed potatoes and gravy weighs? 4 ounces. You know how many times I picked that weight up? Twice. I was basically, couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything. I couldn't even hardly raise my hand up. I couldn't do nothing. And we was in rehab 5 days. I walked out of the hospital. I went in, not being able to even pick up a spoonful of mashed potatoes, and walked out. And, but it's still, I'll tell you this last, and we'll quit for a while. You know, I mean, y'all probably tired of this. But anyway, so we go home. Went to the wrong house. That ain't where I lived at. You know, there's a lot that got scrambled. You know, a whole lot. And I was looking for another house, and they wasn't where I ain't where I was supposed to be. But, anyway, so about 3 months later, 2 months later, Dr. Pointer told Barbara, you know, it was in the spring, early in the winter, still in the winter. And he said, you know, cold and flu season, you know, he told Barbara, says, you cannot let him get sick. Because he's not healed up on the inside. If he sneezes, you'll probably blow all that stuff apart. Just a sneeze. And it scared her to death. And I didn't like it too well neither, you know. And so I had taken all kinds of antihistamines, everything like that. And so we ended up doing pretty good. We was going back up there one day, went up the driveway and going up the road. And all of a sudden I sneezed. For no reason, I sneezed. And that like to have killed me. I thought everything in me come out. And I was just laying there with my head down. And Barbara thought I died right there. She started to pull over, you know, and it did hurt. It hurt as bad as it did that other time. And after a minute or two, this is another of part of God's plan here. After a few minutes, I got all right. Went on up there and got a scan, CT scan. Didn't show anything. Everything was fine. Okay. Go back home. A couple of days after that, Dr. Pointer calls me. He said, I got something I need to talk to you about. Okay. He said, I've been thinking about that scan that you had up here. And I couldn't see anything on it, but had some more people that could look at it in a different way. And they seen that you got a leak on the back of your heart. Where the arch comes out, there's a leak on the back. It's 3 millimeter leak. You know, it's small, but it's pretty good size. And he went on to tell me, Barbara don't know this yet. He went on to tell me, what are you going to have? And I said, well, what are you going to have to do with that? He said, we're going to have to take your heart back out and put in 2 stitches and then put it back in. And I sit there a minute and I thought, what the flip going to do with this, you know? And so I give Barbara the phone. Barbara's talking to him. And after about 5 minutes, Barbara was crying, you know, and she wasn't real happy. And she was trying to keep me in the house and away from everybody so I wouldn't get sick or anything, nothing like that. And she hung the phone up and she said, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to church tomorrow. Or the next Sunday, anyway. And I said, we got to go. And, you know, one thing led to another, and she said, no. The doctor, no, said, you can't do that. And I said, well, we're going to have to do that some way or another. And I didn't know she was already sick, and I didn't know that. And she got up that morning, she said, all right, we can go. I said, okay, we're going. And she was sick, never let on like she was or anything. Get on up to church. And we hadn't been there in 2 months, 3 months. Because of all that stuff. And I walked in the door, and the pastor's wife seen us, and she come back there and talked. Edwin come back there and said, no, said, I want you to pray for me right here today. And that's what we're here for. And then we're going to have to leave. And so I went up front, anointed with oil, and the 2 elders had up in front of the church, prayed for them, laid their hands on them, and prayed for them. And there's a bunch of people in the building said, I don't know what was wrong with you, but they fixed it right then. I said, yeah, I know they fixed it. But I knew they fixed it. And about half the congregation knew they fixed it. But we still had the doctors didn't know that. They didn't care, you know. They knew I gotta get that fixed. So I had to go through some breathing tests and everything, see if my lungs can, you know, which didn't make no sense because if I could live through it back when I had it, I could live through it now. But I still had to go through all them tests. And they'd run an angiogram, you know, that's that where they run the camera up your blood vein, you know, and stick it up in your heart, you know, take these little pictures. And so anyway, they're looking for a tire. They run that, you know, they took all that, took the pictures, and we're sitting in the hospital room, and that little doctor come back. He was a Japanese guy. He said, well, Mr. Martin said, we done this and done that, and took pictures and done this and everything. He said, your arteries look great. There's no buildup or anything like that. I said, you're supposed to be looking for a leak. He said, there's no leak. But now, the surgery was already scheduled.
There you go.
Already scheduled. Money. So, it was already scheduled. Okay, can we not just get out and just drop this? No. So anyhow, to make a long story short there, they had it scheduled for a Monday. And we was going to be the very first one, 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning. We had to get there at 5 and get everything prepped. Everything for this monumental surgery. It's supposed to be worse than it was before because we got to do all this stuff. Open it back up, put me on the heart lung machine, take that thing out, put 2 stitches in, stick it all back in. And so here we was supposed to go the next day. Barbara she wasn't happy because she was going to have to go through all this stuff all over again. It hurt her worse, a whole lot worse than it did me. Because most part, if you remember, I slept through most of it. You know, but she didn't. She had to see every bit of this. And so she was in there on the couch, crying, of course. Candace was on the phone crying. And the only thing I told them 2 kids, I said, don't you leave her mama up here by herself. It just got worse and worse and worse, and it was raining that day, and I went on the back deck. Mm-hmm. I never been real big on praying, really. I mean, I have, but not like some people do. You know, I do more. I'll talk to him, he talks to me. Kind of, you know. I mean, he don't speak the words. That ain't what I'm saying. But I know what he's saying. And I don't know exactly what I said. But I was listening to it, and I went over to the rail deck, the back deck. And this is about the last thing I said. I don't want her to go through no more of this. I don't want them doctors to touch me. I want you to fix this today. And went back in, and there's a whole lot more to it than that, of course, but that was the main thing that I said. And anyway, I went back in the house, and Barbara knew I'd been out there praying. And she said, well, are we still going up there? I said, yeah, we're still going up there. Well, what are you going to do? I said, Lord said to trust me and wait.
Praise the Lord. Yeah.
And I said, that's what we're going to do.
Praise the Lord.
So anyway, that morning, we get up at 3, get ready to go. Oh, they said, this is about to drop the most important part. They told us to bring enough clothes for probably a 10-day stay. Barbara said, what are you going to do? I said, don't take nothing. well, he said, trust me, wait. You take clothes, we're not trusting nobody.
Come on.
So
Praise the Lord.
anyway, we get up there, and we get up there and check in. That nurse says, you can bring your clothes on in, so we ain't got no clothes. Oh, okay. And that went on for a little while. This and that. Now, Barbara did take her another dress or something. He's in the truck. Not a dress, but it's in the truck. Never took it in the hospital. And went through all that stuff. Went through all the prep work and all that other stuff. And had by that time, Candace and him was up there. And the pastor of the church was up there. And we was all in the one of them rooms there before you go in the operating room. Whatever you call that thing. Escapes me now, but we was in there and we had prayer and we talked for a little while and we had prayer. And Dr. Porter come in there and tell what I was going to do and all this other stuff. Okay. And we had prayer and then he went out to where he was going to go. Barbara and all of them went in the waiting room. The nurses rolled me back to the operating room. Okay. Put me up on that table. Now, I'd been on an operating table before, back when I was a kid, and it was hard as a rock. These here built 50 body. These actually felt pretty good, I noticed that. But the people wasn't talking much. Like they have them other procedures when I was up there doing these other things to me. Is telling jokes or something, trying to keep you relaxed, But these times, these people wasn't saying anything. They wasn't even speaking. And it was the same group now. They said that had that nurse to go watch the paper. When my name showed up, they was going to do it. And they was there. All of them was there. The exact same group, every one of them. And took me in there, laying on that operating table. Just looking there, I said, reckon they got enough TVs in here? I was trying to get somebody to say something. And there was TVs hanging everywhere. They record everything that you do. You got monitors and everything, and lights and everything like that. Nobody said a word. I said, oh, well, After about 3 minutes, the head nurse come by and she said, Mr. Martin. I said, yes. I was trying to be a good little boy. She said, we're having trouble getting your blood supply here. We're going to take you back to the step down room, and we'll bring you back in here and get your blood. And she said, I know right then, this thing ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen. And so we go back into that step down room. Barbara come back in there. And a nurse come in, she said, we made a mistake and didn't order you enough blood soon enough, so we're going to have to wait. And okay, I said, okay, wait. I didn't care. And then Dr. Pointer come back in there. Didn't mention anything about anything. And Barbara was sitting there, and I was sitting up on the bed by then. And he said, we ain't had a CT scan on you in a while. Why don't we have another scan, and then if you don't show up, I will let you go home. And I thought Barbara was going to hit the floor. But seriously, I mean, and I ain't joking. I asked God to stop this thing.
Yes.
And he stopped it. And so, and that's when Barbara first met Dr. Kennedy. He come in there. And like I said, his whole group was there that was there for the first time. And now there's going to be here for the second time because they wanted some more of it. That's what Dr. Kennedy said. That first time was so great. I mean, how does the surgery great? I mean, I don't know that. I don't know how you could do that, say that, but he did. And so he was telling about that's when I learned about the elevator thing. It was him and two nurses. And all this other stuff that happened. He told us a lot of stories. But he was changing out something in my hand, whatever you call them things. And he was sitting there. He wasn't scared of me. He wasn't scared of me at all, but he was. I started saying he wasn't scared, but everything that had happened, I could just imagine sometimes what he was thinking, because the first surgery was something that wasn't supposed to happen, and ain't no way I was supposed to live through it. The second surgery got stopped by some kind of miracle, and it was just absolutely amazing. And he, like I said, he went to the University of Alabama, Birmingham, got a medical degree down there. And as far as I know, the only Christian man in that hospital at that time. Now, I'm sure there was another one somewhere, but he was a good guy. He was a real good guy. But we come back home after that. We stayed there for a little while, went back home, and never heard another word about nothing. And now this went on, taking CT scans. He told me, he said, "You're gonna have to take these things the rest of your life." And you know, you probably die a little bit every time you take one of them, I would say. And it went from every 6 months or every 3 months, I guess it was to start with. And kept stretching it out. Went up there one time last year. It was before we finally quit going. Yeah, finally quit going. I was supposed to do this all my life. And after a while, you know, he was an absolute atheist when he met us, but he ain't now. And he told me one of the last time we was up there, he said, "I know you what you're," you know, because I used to see you could read the, was I doing that? I guess it was. You know, you get on my chart and you can see your skin. And I get on there and I look at it every once in a while, you know, everything's still going. And you could see things was changing, but I didn't say anything. Yeah, we went up there one time and he started in the door and he stopped in his office there. Went back out to the computer. And then he come back in there and said, didn't mean to make y'all wait, but I wanted to look at something on the scan just to make sure I was seeing it the right way. And he said, "Have you looked at it lately?" And I said, "No, I ain't looked at it in a month or two." He said, "You know how you went down, you know, and it tore and you changed direction and everything?" He said, "Now it's running straight down through the center." And I asked him, you know, just to aggravate him, "How's that possible, pal?" And he just laughed. He didn't say anything. He just laughed. And after that, about a visit or two after that, we don't have to go back. He said, "There's people up here that need me." He said, "You don't."
Amen, brother.
And that is, I had 3 things that was a death sentence, all at the same time. And God fixed them all at the same time. And seriously, I wouldn't be standing here today. Well, there's a nurse come up to me one time, was going to have a kidney thing with you, a little procedure later. And sitting in there in pre-op. And I really liked this girl. And the anesthesiologist that was going to do that today come up, you know, and he picked up that chart. He looked at that chart, looked at me, says, "What you been through, I don't even want to explain to you what we're going to do." He just hung it back up because he knew the name. The name. Remember the name. Jesus Christ, the name of all. Names are important. And not mine, but that's what they remembered. This other little nurse come up, took that chart off the back of it, and she looked at it, hung it back up. She come over to me and says, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." She said, "Where was you at when you had your episode?" Because it already been a while, you know, and she still knew it. I said, "I was standing in the living room." She said, you know that's impossible. I said, yeah, that's what I heard. You know, that's what everybody keeps saying. And she left there just bawling her eyes out. But that's the story of a dissected aorta when the right person's in control. Because I didn't really do anything except, you know, there's a Bible verse, and it's a simple one. It's Matthew 3. Matthew 18th chapter, Matthew 3rd verse. And about to come to Him as little children, and that's been mine for all my whole entire life. And what do you do when your children, if your daddy's right here, and you're the child following behind, and he says, "Stop," you're going to stop. He says, "Come on." If you trust Him enough, what are you going to do? You ain't got a thing in the world to worry about. And the biggest argument I have with people nowadays is on dying, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to come here. Let me tell y'all a little bit something. Dying ain't a thing. There ain't nothing to that. You know what you do when you die? What does the Bible say you do when you die? Go to sleep. And I can stand here and tell you right now, that's what you do. I died, I think, 5 times. 4. I don't know. Barbara knows. I don't know. But, there is. Now, they may be pain before it, but at the moment when you go, you just go to sleep. That's it. Ain't nothing else. And I will tell you this, too. We're in church, and this is a church service. I've had a lot of people, and if I ain't trying to hurt nobody's feelings, I'm not. But if you're afraid to die, you need to reevaluate where you stand with the Lord. I mean, that's all there is to it.
That's it.
Because if you're not afraid to die, if you've been born again, you're not afraid to die. Nothing matters no more. You know, no, I don't want to get in a car wreck. I've been through pain. I don't want to do that. But dying ain't nothing. I mean, it's not absolutely nothing. And all the kids, all you got to do is get ready. That's all you got to do. And it's not hard to do. Easiest thing in the world to do. But it could be the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest and the easiest thing to do that there ever was, I guess. Is to admit that you don't know. And all you got to do is give everything to Him. And you don't worry about nothing no more after that. Everything's free. And so we even come to a point that's had another surgery supposed to do because of something that they didn't do and all this other stuff. And I'd already made my mind up I wasn't going to do it. I said, Barbara's been through enough. I've been through enough. I ain't going to do no more. And so anyway, God said, no, I think you're going to do this one. Believe it or not. And it was kind of funny in the long, but that surgery hurt me a whole lot worse than that big first one. And it was a bypass up here for something. But anyway, still, that wasn't nothing. But I can tell all of you right now, dying is not what they make it out to be. Don't watch no more TV if you don't have to. I mean, seriously. Now, I know, like I said a while ago, there's a place for the doctors. I understand. There's a place for the hospitals. I understand. But most of them's just trying to take your money. Am I lying to you or not? I mean, that's just the way modern times are. You know, that's the way it is. And when Barbara was sitting there at the house the other day, and I got to looking at it. We don't watch TV much, very little. And when we do, we watch Grit. You know, that Grit Channel. All it is westerns. You know, we've seen them probably 25 times, but still, that's the only thing that's on there is fit to watch. And anyway, you get to watching that, and every other week, if you'll get to paying attention, there's something else on TV for you to take. There is.
That's true.
Now, they can't be that many diseases in the world. They don't cure them all, they say. What are these for? You know, to get you that gun money. And that's all it is. And I still say to this day, if we hadn't had that life insurance policy, I wouldn't be standing here now. And it didn't have anything, well, it could have been. God might have had other plans. I ain't going to say that. I take that back. But he put everything in motion, set everything right where it's supposed to be. And if you talk, there's about 30 miracles in this altogether. If you start at the very beginning and go all the way through, little bitty things. It was put together, it had to fall into line, just bam, bam, bam. Yeah. And I didn't do anything. I just sat back and enjoyed it. Parts of it I didn't. But it's been it has been an adventure. I will say that. Now I did learn a few things from this. I might have already said this. I wouldn't wish this on nobody, but I wouldn't take nothing for what I learned. Okay. One of them is about women. Was one. You know, all women don't leave. You know, and another one. Oh, I didn't mean you. I had an uncle that died a pretty bad death when I was about 14, 15 or so, and he was a pretty well alcoholic, I guess. And he ran around all over the county and all over the world and all this other stuff. And he had 5 kids, a wife, and he had a house. I don't know how he paid for it because he stayed drunk most of the time. And so anyway, I heard that he had died. I said, "Oh, okay. And, what happened?" Said he got drunk and passed out in the back seat of a car, and he had a lit cigarette and it fell out of his hand, and it started burning the carpet, you know, and it come up. Now y'all can imagine what carpet is when it starts smoking. I mean, we all know that. And he was passed out right above it. And so when they found him, he got him out of there and got him to some hospital somewhere, and he lived like 2 days. And I didn't. Now what are we going to now? Human nature. Think about human nature just a minute. Now we don't think the worst of people most of the time. But what would you think what would you just assume? This guy, every time you'd ever see him, you're holding up, he's drunk, beating his wife or his kids. And then you hear that he got burned up in a car. Now, and you're a Christian person, even if you are 15-year-old, 14-year-old. And what's the first thing you're going to think? Human nature. You're right. Now, I was sitting up there one time, and I don't know if I was dreaming, if it was a vision or what. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what some of them things was I seen. And sat up in one of them pre-op rooms, and sitting there, and these 2 girls come walking up to me. Now, they had on different color uniforms than the nurses. But they come up and they said, "How you doing?" This, that, and they, and come to find out they knew who I was. They knew my name. They knew Barbara's name. They knew my family, everything, and talking about all this stuff. And I said, "Well, who are you?" He said, "We're James's daughters." I said, "I didn't know James had 2 more daughters. That was the guy that got burned up in the car, right?" And she said, "Yeah, we're James's daughters." We talked to her for a few minutes, and now I don't know that this was real or not. Seriously, I do not know. Anyway, they went on, and she looked at the list that she had on the piece. She said, "We got to go talk to some more people." So she patted me on the knee, said, "Everything's gonna be all right." And I thought about that the first time she said it, and I thought she was talking about me and the condition I was in, right? Later on, I was showed that wasn't what she was talking about at all. That her father was going to be all right, and not to judge people too early. Because we don't know. Do not know. You don't know if he was born again before, or you're going to be changed twinkling an eye at the rapture. Why can't you get saved that quick too? The last breath you take. But do not judge people too quick. And two or three more little things like that. But other than that, what I seen when I was out of, that was about it. And one thing I thought was pretty funny. There was a night nurse. Barbara could probably tell you the name of this person, but I didn't know her name. I'd never seen her face. Never seen her. But I knew that voice when she come in my room, and it was awful. And I couldn't stand it. It's like a chalkboard kind of stuff every time she spoke. Barbara didn't like her either. Barbara said she was hate. And she was in there one day, and now Barbara told me this is what I did. I'm just taking her word for it because I don't know, but I'll take credit for it anyway. But she come in there, and then what she's telling me said, "Mr. Martin, you're gonna have to do this. You're gonna have to do that." And Barbara said she could tell I was getting tired of it. And what I told her was, and I'll take Barbara's word for it, that's what I told her, that all I got to do is have my name written in the Lamb's Book of Life. And besides that, I ain't got to do nothing else. And Barbara said she left. And as far as she knows, she never come back. But I don't know if that was, well, Barbara's seen it, but anyway. But that's about all I have on that story. Of course, there's more to it than that. But it's getting late. I'm sure y'all are getting tired of all this, but I just want you to know that if you put your trust and you got your heart in the right place, put your trust in the right place, go on and live your life. Don't worry about it. Somebody else has got this anyway. You're really, if you get to think of it, you don't control anything. How much do you actually control? Nothing. Can you do anything by yourself? Within ourselves, we can't do nothing. We can't do it. We can't do anything. And but anyway, I appreciate being here. I'm glad I like y'all's patience. And I like telling that story because it's and all of it is. Now, mind you, now I slept through a lot of that, but Barbara didn't. She's seen every bit. One of them times that I was telling you about that when it was the last time when I finally woke up good. She was sitting over in the corner. Well, she always does, sitting over in the corner. She was reading the Bible, and I didn't ask her for a long time what it was. And she come over to me and asked me how I was doing, all that, everything was good. And I asked her later, I said, what was you reading? She said, Psalms. I reckon she read through the whole book of Psalms. And then, what better, But anyway, that's my story. And I appreciate you listening. And I'm officially through with this. All righty.
Y'all tell